raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna see in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is
Hey everyone, welcome everybody. Oh, I feel like I'm on ESPN radio or something here. Anyway, welcome everybody. We're glad you're here. I'm going to ask everybody to do me a favor. Can everybody just turn on your cameras? I want to see everybody. And we just want to say welcome to everybody. We're glad that you're taking time to be here and to join us. We've been wanting to do this for a while, but it finally came through that we're about to do it. So we're SoundPoint Solutions. We are a group of guys that love Jesus and believe in the cause of the local church. And we also do a lot of sound. So today we're gonna talk about a little bit of sound. But before we move on, I want to present you guys the guys that are here, so you guys can get to know us a little bit. So, okay, I'm over there. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking over here. I should be looking over there. But here to my right, your left, I have my brother Moses. He is gonna be talking with me. And Mo, can you say what's up?
Hey guys, praise the Lord. What's up? I'm here, happy to be here and share some of the things that we've learned, and we like it. We think it's fun, and we're gonna go through a few things. And I just hope you guys, if you guys have questions, man, feel free to ask. We've all are at different stages, trying to learn how to learn. How to run the sound. So we're at different steps, right? So we're all just trying to learn together. So man, feel free to ask any question you come across, and we could stop and we'll dig in. Okay.
Awesome. And behind the camera we have Pastor Danny, my cousin Danny. He's a cameraman over there, and standing right there in next to him we have Charin. That's how we know him. Charin is another guy from SoundPoint Solutions, one of our guys, and then we're going to go to the video control room. So you guys can meet everybody. We have, I believe we're going to see Jonathan Rivera first, and then we have Eddie right there. They're the guys making it work, and they're gonna act like they're busy, but they're really doing nothing back there. No, I'm just kidding. but anyway, so that's from us. We would like to get to know you guys, and we would like for you guys to get to know each other just a little bit. So we're gonna go one by one. I'll call you guys by the name that appears on your screen, and we're just gonna ask name, where you're from, and if you're doing sound at church, we would like to hear what church you're at. So we'll start with Jose Ramirez, since you look most nervous. We want to hear from you, brother.
All right, so my name.
Where you're from, and if you're serving at a church, we'd like to know what's the name of the church. Can you hear me now? Nope. Nope, nada. Let's see what's going on here. How about now? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Your name, where you're from, and if you're serving at a church, what church you're at. Thanks. Thank you for welcome. Welcome. And I see we have Daniel Guzman. We'd like to hear from you, brother. We hear you, brother. You can go ahead. Absolutely. Thank you. Welcome. And it's been a challenge for all of us. It's been a challenge for all of us. So, Eddie, we already met. He's in the back somewhere. And we're going to jump over to Gino. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. We're nice to see you, bro. Hadn't seen you in a while, too. And we have Ray. Ray, can you introduce yourself for us, please? Awesome, Ray. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we're gonna make a transition in a moment, and Mo will talk to us about that in a second. But before we make that transition, I just want to say something really quick. As Gino mentioned, and I believe Daniel mentioned as well that this time in the pandemic, it really, we started from zero to running full online. At least in our church, that was the case. We went from just doing live sound for the services to now needing to broadcast into internet, and that's a whole different thing, right? It's a whole different animal. And so, as you guys can tell, and I'm sure it's been your experience because it's been our experience as well, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, and it's just really hard. So today, we really want to help you guys with as best as we can. Now, we understand we're not going to be able to solve every problem, but our goal today is to teach you some basic, fundamental things that without these, we won't get sound, period. So we want to get that foundation set right. We want to teach you things that took us years to learn. We're going to give it to you guys here today. Things that we were doing sound blind for a long time, but it took us years and years to learn, and we had to figure out on our own, and we're here to give it to you guys, and we're happy to do so. So we believe in the church. We believe in the purpose of the church. We believe in the power of the church, and that's why we're doing this. We want to help you guys. We want to make sure you guys, we believe in each and every one of your churches that you guys represent, and we want to make sure that we put out the best broadcast we can, because I was reading an article recently that says this truth, that before, people used to drive by our church and decide whether they were going to come in or not, or they would get close and leave, or sometimes just walk in, peek in the door, and then walk away. Well, now people will watch your service online for months before they decide whether to go to visit in person your church. And so this mixing for live stream is so crucial and so important to get better at it, right? So anyway, I just don't want to talk about that stuff. I really want to get in, so hands on. So with that, we're going to encourage your guys' participation. I'm going to really encourage you guys, take a lot of notes. Get a piece of paper, get a pencil, pen, take notes, because we're going to give you so much information that it's going to be so easy to forget. So there's no shame in the game. Like, get a paper, get a pencil. I've done it many times. During this pandemic, I've done it a lot of times as well. Watch videos, watch people do what we're doing here today, and write notes, and later go back to the mixer for our service and apply those lessons and practice those lessons, right? So we're going to ask you to do that today too. Okay. So with that, I'll hand it over to Moses, so Moses can give us the instructions.
All right. So we're going to put a link, because through Zoom, the audio quality is not going to be good. It just the way Zoom works it's the quality it's not going to be that great. So we're going to put a link, and it's going to take you to a website where the quality will be better. And when we come back to questions and answers, you could ask your questions by typing, and then we'll make space to come back to Zoom. So just minimize your Zoom page. Don't close off it. You might have to lower the volume, make sure that so you don't hear the audio twice. Actually, I think we'll take care of it on our end. But just minimize the Zoom window, and we'll put the link, and then we'll get going. So, guys, I think the guys are putting the link now. So check in the comments on the chat option, and we'll see. When everybody gets it going, give me a thumbs up. That way, I'll know that we're ready to roll. And the website is going to ask you just to put in. I think everybody say hi. Once you get in on the second link on the chat, just say hi, and then it's going to ask you to put in your name, and that's it. You don't got to create an account or nothing like that. It's just going to ask you for your name, so that we could monitor, and then we'll get going. We'll see if.
All right. So while that happens, we're going to just put a little bit of music. We'll give you guys a couple seconds to switch over.
Okay, I think they just put the link up, so you might see it. So when you're in, just say what's up, give me a thumbs up, give me a hi, whatever, and then we'll know you've made it.
Awesome.
And then the quality of sound will get like way better.
Okay, I see Ray's connected. Let me see. All right. So as you guys connect over, I'm curious. Everybody can hear me? We're good?
Yeah. Okay, right now we see Gino and Jose in there. I think everybody else is trying.
Everybody else is switching over right now. Just want to shout out the camera work from Danny right now. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so
Okay, we got a few more people coming in, so we're waiting for everybody to jump in. So you don't have to close Zoom, but we do need you to connect to the other to the other link, and just say hi or hello or something.
all right. So who do we see on YouTube right now, or on what
The
is
other
this?
one on Church Online, we see Gino, Jose, Ray. It might be a little delayed, but if you already switched over, give me a thumbs up on Zoom and just on the camera. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you already crossed over. And we had to do this, guys, so that so you could actually hear the difference when we do changes,
Yeah.
because they were not coming through. All right, we see Gino, we see Jose. Who's missing? Is that Tito? If it's, we were switching over to you to this link.
There's a link on the chat.
We need to switch over to that one. All right. Okay, so I think most of us are in.
If somebody's having a hard time, just go to the chat, let us know, and the guys will help you.
Okay, but it looks like everybody's
Everybody's over?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, so we're gonna start off. Okay, so step one is getting the audio from the mixer to the camera.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the number one thing that we got to start off with, right? So there's different ways. I mean, there's super expensive, elaborate, like top of the line ways to do it, and there's very basic ways to do it. And I think it's important to remember what you got is the best that you got. You know, like that's the best tool you have. So whether you have an expensive camera setup with a video mixer, man, that's the best. If you just have an iPhone, that's the best. Whatever you have in your hands should be the best that you got, right? So let's start with that. So what I want to go over is and if this might be some basic stuff, but we want to just go over it so that's out of the way, and then we could go dive in deeper. So first, if you're going from the computer, if you're using a computer to encode, and what I mean by computer to encode, if in your church all the cameras are connected to a computer somehow, like OBS is probably one of the more popular programs, or vMix is another popular program. And what I mean, the computer is the one that's sending it to Facebook, right? The computer is the one that's sending it to YouTube. The way to send audio to your computer, most people, your first instinct is going to be, hey, man, I'm going to plug a cable out of the mixer, and I'm going to plug it into the headphone jack of the computer. Most people will try that, but you're not going to get high quality sound that way. The sound is going to be very degraded because your headphone jack on your computer, the headphone jack on your computer is not designed to handle the amount of uncompressed data that the mixer's sending. The mixer's sending very high quality, like full bandwidth sound. Your little mic input on your computer is designed for a small little $20 mic that you pick up at Best Buy, right? So you could be doing amazing work on the computer. On the mixer, amazing mixing, using filters, EQs, everything that the mixer has. But if it's going through a 1/8, what would be like this little cable, maybe the camera. If you're using like this microphone cable to get audio, it's not gonna come out. It's not gonna come out good. So we're gonna switch over to the screen right now, and you're gonna see some of the devices you could use, because you could use what we recommend is to use an audio interface. Now, an audio interface, will grab like microphone style cable. We call it XLR, and I might be going very basic, but we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we're gonna grab this microphone XLR, and then we're gonna plug it into an interface so that the USB interface will convert the sound will transfer the sound to your computer. Now interfaces, I mean, you could start off with, man, like this. I saw like some really good one here for $100, or you could, man, go.
Could get into thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you can get thousands of dollars. You know, like the interfaces they use like to record what we call it, like a Grammy Award winner
Right.
songwriter might be using something way more expensive than this. But so again, if you need more specifics, like advice, like, hey man, I'm looking between this one and this one, we could talk about that later. But right now, what I want to touch is that if your computer is doing the encoding and video, if your computer is the one that's sending the video out to Restream, to YouTube, to Facebook, to whatever service that you're using, this interface, something like here, what we've seen right here on the website, this is something you want to go for. And they're called USB audio interfaces. Okay, so that's step one. And I'm going to go through this really quick because we want to get into the good stuff. Okay, now say you have, all you have is an iPhone. Maybe that's what your church could just has available right now, but you have a mixer that's receiving all the inputs, and you want to get the audio from the mixer to your iPhone, but you don't want to just use the microphone on your iPhone. Well, then you could use something like this. And oh, we got it right. I'm sorry. Here it goes. And this is called the Roll-In Go Mixer. This one's very popular. It's $150, but it will allow you to connect your iPhone to this device, and then also connect an output from the mixer that would go to this device. So these are two of the ways that you could do it. This is if you're using a phone. The last thing I'm going to touch is decoder, TRS phone. That was it, right?
Yeah. The other thing we will mention is that try your best. I mean, I know sometimes our boards are limited, but I think at this point, whether we have a digital board or an analog board mixer, we should all have an ability to do an aux auxiliary mix for our live. So, don't. There's something called tape out on the mixers, and it's so easy to just plug into that. And the reason we don't want you to do that is because that creates that grabs the picture of the mix that you're using for the room, for your church building, and it starts sending it out. And what works for a church building will not work for internet or for broadcast. So it's important that we set that difference, right, for a different mix for broadcast and a different mix for the room for the church. So just before we're gonna move on to a couple things here, but before we do that, I just want to mention really quick. These are some of the most common mistakes that we've noticed in watching our churches, our onlines, and I'm going to mention there's basically four things. One is gain structure, and we're gonna show you how to do that right now in a bit. But we see bad gain structure, or it's not dialed in correctly. We see bad mic placement, and we're gonna go over that in a second. We see the equalization that is not the most optimal or the best for whether it's voice, whether it's a drum, a guitar. And we see also what we call the mix balance. The mix balance is when you put the volume up and down, and how you balance all that's coming into the mixer to send it out. So those four basic things are what we see are the most common mistakes that we're seeing. And we're not pointing fingers, by the way. Like we said at the beginning, we know this is new to most of us, and it's something that we're trying to figure out. And I will say this: if you don't practice this, you're not going to get better. So it's not just about showing up on Sunday and doing it. No, we got to do it at home. Most of our all digital mixers, right? We'll let you record. Yeah, you can plug a computer with a USB and record, and it'll record the whole channels, and you can use free software online on your computer where you can practice, and you have to practice, guys. You have to practice to get better. So with that said, let's get on the nitty-gritty. You guys ready? Let's get on the nitty-gritty. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about mic placement. So we're going to talk about mic placement. I'm going to show you one example here, and then we're going to move over to the drums. We're going to do it live, okay? Some drum mic placement and gain structure. So this is a common mistake. I see it with singers a lot. I have this microphone. We don't have it plugged up, but I just wanted to show you. So there's a huge difference. I don't know if you guys can see how go this way. There's a huge difference when I have the mic close like this and when I have it far away like this. And a lot of times we see that a lot of times the singer is singing with the mic really far, and it's impossible to get good sound that way. Right now, look, I moved from here and I'm talking this way. It changes the dynamic of what you're getting. And that's super important. How you put the mic on the drum, on a guitar, on anything, it matters. It makes the world of a difference. Look, I'm going to show you guys a simple example. All right, you see this? This is like really bassy. I'm right on the microphone. But the more I get away from the mic, the less bassy it gets, and it starts losing like its nice color, right? So we have to really practice good quality mic placement. So with that, we're going to go over to the drums, and we're going to show you how we place the mics, and then we're going to do a little bit of gain structure. Mo, you want to pick it up and talk about some of these points here?
All right. And what he means by what gain structure means, just so that we also get some reference, it's it's talking about the preamp. So you know how when if you see a guitar player, is probably the easiest example. They have their little. Some of them don't use them anymore. It's not, but back in the day, they still had like a cabinet, a speaker cabinet, where they plugged the guitar in and they played, and then everything was sounding off that guitar cabinet. Well, that guitar cabinet had a volume that was raising and lowering the sound, right? If they raised it too high, you start hitting distortion, right? Like that classic distortion you hear on rock guitar. That's what they're doing. The amplifier, the part in the amplifier that's making it sound louder, they're taking it past what its ability to do, and it creates that distortion. The cool thing about guitars is back in the 60s or 70s, they ended up liking that sound, and we like it now, right? We like it. So microphone is the same way. If we don't set that volume right, it'll go past what it's supposed to pick up, or it'll be overdriven, and it'll cause distortion. You'll hear distortion on the microphone, and that is completely or directly tied to gain structure. And what we mean by gain structure, if you're setting up a mic, you guys have a button called gain, right? And in this mixer, we're going to switch camera right now, and I'm going to show you where it is. But okay, yeah. So yeah, so if I select this channel right here, this is my preamp. I don't know if you can see how well you can see it there, but it says preamp, and it's at 0 decibels. So this one, if I raise it, you'll be able to hear it. But there's a point where you raise it too high and it doesn't sound good. So we're going to go over how to set that right now so that you have it right. Drums is probably one of the most crucial places where you have to set it, because otherwise when they hit it, because it's so dynamic, somebody can hit it soft, somebody can hit it hard, and the volume changes so much. If you don't set it right, the drummer could be doing a very good job, but if it's set wrong, the snare, the kick drum will sound bad. Right, and it's nothing to do with the drummer. It's just that it was not set right. So we're gonna go over the drums right now, and we're gonna set that really quick and get an idea how that happens.
Can you mention where the mics are set on the drums?
Is this one? That's channel 1. All right. All right, we're going to start with the kick drum. So what we like to do, what I like, there's like 2 schools of thought on how to do this. We'll go over 2 of them, but what we're going to do right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the fader, Maybe you could switch to the mixer,
You want
Eddie.
to talk about mic placement?
Okay. We'll go over mic's placement. So we're setting to start off for the kick drum. We're setting the microphone inside, like about 4 or 5 inches inside the drum. The further you pull it out, the more bassy it sounds. The more you fill it in, the more slap you sound. You have to have a balance of that. It can't just be like a thump for the kick drum. It has to have some slap because the slap gives it definition. And when you have all the instruments playing, if you don't hear the slap, it doesn't sound. It could get lost. One of the best, at least for me, one of the easiest ways to remember what a good drum sound sounds is think of classic rock. When they're doing the double pedals, like think of like any old school rock song. They love that. They love to hear that slap sound. It might be a little bit slightly different than the style of music that we do, but that's one way where you could hear the slap. Now, it also is going to affect what kind of mic you use. Some mics give you more slap, some mics don't. All right, so you see, so we have the microphone about 4 inches in, right? That's about all right. About 4 inches in. So he's going to start hitting it. Can you start hitting the beater, Leo? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure my gain is all the way down, off, because otherwise you could really blow your speakers. So this is important. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the fader, and let me move it. I'm going to grab the fader, and I'm going to put it at unity. Once I have it at unity, I'm going to come back to my gain, and I'm going to start raising it to what the room should sound like. If I think the room, if in that particular room, what it's a good volume. So I'll start raising it till I get it where I think it should be. And usually, now you gotta be careful. If you raise it too much, it's gonna go into the red. I don't know if you can see it on the mixer. It's hitting that red. That's too much. I'm distorting the preamp. So the part in the mixer that's giving it life, that's actually like making the electronics work. If I go past a certain level, it'll start hitting red. When you see it red, it's going to distort, and it's going to sound bad. So you're going to have to lower it down, ease it off. Ease it off. Maybe around right there, hitting a little bit of orange and having it here. Once you have that, then you think you should be at a good place. Now, if all the instruments are playing, you can stop, Leo. If all the instruments are playing and you think it's loud, well, then you could use the fader to lower it. Okay. Now, one thing to remember is that you see the fader from negative 60 or down here. If I go from here, it gets loud, right? From unity, which is that little U, every mixer will have that U. If I go past that, it's not the same as going from here to here. So even though the fader is moving physically like 2 centimeters, if I'm past the U, it's multiplying. So that's always good to remember. So for above unity, where the fader is, if I move it past unity and go to like 5 decibels or negative 5, it's going to start, once I pass unity, it's going to start getting really loud. It's not the same as, what I'm trying to tell you, that the distance is not the same. Like what you would expect it to raise, even though it's the same distance of the fader moving up and down, once you pass unity, it starts multiplying and it gets way, way, way louder. So it's something always to just keep in mind. Again, so I'll do it one more time. The first thing I do is I set the fader to unity, then I go to the gain, and I start raising it till I get it to a point where it's not being overdriven. I usually want to like see a little bit of orange. And that's how we typically set up the preamps. If it's too loud for the room, then I would go and lower the master. And if you're really familiar with your system and you're cool with breaking something and trying to fix it, like you would go to the amplifiers where your speakers are and lower those a little bit down. And that's how you would do it. Okay. The other way, there's another school of thought on how to set a channel, and we're gonna do it again. I'm gonna set everything back to 0. All right. Again, I'm coming into church. We have a new kick drum. We're putting it in.
Mo, yeah. I'm just gonna let them know. We're gonna put the computer,
Okay.
Just so they could get a closer view
Yeah.
of what you're doing. I'll kind of follow along with
Okay.
the mouse to see
All right.
exactly where you're at.
All right. So we're gonna go to the computer screen right now. So now I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna raise the channel. No. this time I'm going to ask Leo to start hitting the kick drum. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start raising the gain. And you see it, you guys see it on the top where the arrow is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start raising it till I make sure it's not hitting red. So I'm raising it. Once I see it hit red, you see how it's sitting red there? I'm going to lower it back down. Lower it back down. Okay. Right now, okay, there. That's kind of where you want it. Right there. You never wanted to hit red, but you don't want it down here on the super low, like, bars of the meter going up. You want it like maybe around -12. If you see your mixer, you'll see -12. That's what you want to hit, a little bit of the orange. You kind of a little bit of orange. You don't want to hit red for sure. So once, this is the second school of thought on how to set a preamp. Once you set that up, then you raise your volume to the room. Then you can raise it. Oh, okay, there it is. So what the way to think of it, this is the gain is raising the preamp, the part that's making the sound like come alive, and then this, the fader, is just volume. And it's important to notice the difference. That one of them is raising the preamp, making the electronics sending like voltage and making it louder and louder, but volume is just making it like you've been able to hear it. The sound is not changing. So I could have the gain overdriven, like way past what it should be, and and if I just raise it a little bit on the fader, you won't hear it as loud, but it'll sound distorted. Again, the easiest way to think about it is the guitar, how the guitar players play. Like they could have distortion, like they could be overdriving their preamp, but then they'll lower the volume, so at the volume that they want. So they're two separate things.
And I think that's one of the mistakes we see a lot also, where people use the gain as a volume knob and to mix, and they start overdriving that preamp and start getting distortion, even though the volume's really low.
Yeah, because if I have my volume down here, like very low, I can make it sound loud in the speakers by raising the gain, but I'm changing the quality of the sound. The mic will start sounding distorted, will start sounding fuzzy, and because the preamp is being overdriven, right? So it's better to have. So again, like one way, maybe we could do it again, Leo, just one last time on the kick again. Okay, I have it at 0 decibels, so I start raising it till I see the green kind of hit 12. It's gonna be 12 on your mixer, but it's gonna be like orange. Once I start seeing a little bit of orange, I just keep raising it. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. There is getting a little bit of orange. Once in a while, it pops in. Okay, now
I think it's worth noting also that during this, you don't necessarily have to hear anything, or you won't hear anything in your house, right?
Yeah, and this might be more tied into sound, because if you're hearing it extremely loud and is barely starting to see a signal, that means your amplifiers for your big speakers are way too loud. So it's like one thing after another and after another. And maybe this is nitty gritty stuff that we could get into later, a little bit one-on-one, but that's for live sound, all this is connected, right? So, because we're using most of us are using just one mixer. But yeah, so it was a good point on that. Can we move over to the snare? No, we're gonna go over the snare. I'm gonna select the snare channel 2, and he's gonna try it again. Yeah, so you can see the mic where he put it. So he put it right by the rim, pointing directly at the snare. If I raise the snare, if I raise the mic up and down, it creates the same effect that Leo was explaining, like when I talk right here and when I talk back here. When I talk right here, like it'll do the exact same thing. And so we like to put it there where Leo has it. You could always experiment, move it up and down, but that's kind of what you want. You always want the snare mic or the microphone pointing directly at the source. So he's gonna hit it again, and again we're going over gain structure. So could you hit it, Leo? So I'm gonna start raising it. So I'm raising it slowly. Raising it slowly. I don't know if you guys can see, but okay, see, it's starting a little bit of orange. That's kind of what I like right there. And then I could start raising it now over here for the room. Now I will start raising the fader for the environment so we could hear it, or through the stream. And
the one other thing I was going to mention is I think it's worth noting that different mics and different instruments require more or less gain. So one microphone, you could set it to like 20 dB, but another one could be at 5 dB and it'd already be loud enough. So I think it's worth noting different mics function differently.
Yeah, very good point. Also, the source, whatever you're miking. If you're miking a snare, man, the snare is just so dynamic. It's gonna be, sometimes it feels like, man, I don't even need a mic. Like if you're ever mixing drums, sometimes like the hi-hat mics, you're like, man, do I even need a hi-hat mic? Because it's just so loud, So and there comes a lot of the big challenges of mixing, like figuring out how to place the mic in a place where it might not pick up the snare as much. And then there's other tools in the mixer that we're going to try to touch as much as we can that we could use to try to isolate as much each mic. All right, so then we have we're going to go over Tom 1. He's gonna hit it again. Now I'm gonna use the second process to set the preamp, because I remember I told you there's two ways to do it. The other way is to put it on unity, put the fader at unity, and then I start raising the preamp to the environment to match the sound that I need, the volume that I need. So go ahead, Leo. Hold on. Okay, I think I know it. Okay, so we need phantom power. Some mics, some of the microphones need phantom power. I forgot that. And what phantom power is, it's sending a power. It's sending a 48 volt power to the microphone. So in this case, my Tom mic needs phantom power. Condenser mics, a lot of the overhead mics you put over the drums need phantom power. And again, what it's sending a current voltage, and it just these mics, whenever they need phantom power, they sound you get a lot more range. So that's what I'm going to do on the mixer. I'm going to hit the 48V button. Your mixer would have something like this. It might look differently. Every manufacturer does it differently, but it would be that 48 volts. So now I'm sending 48 volts to the mic, pretty much turning it on. And we're going to try one more time. Leo, can you hit Tom 1? So in this case, this microphone doesn't need much because it's already powered. So I'm putting it like at 8 decibels. I start seeing a little bit of orange on my meter, and I know, okay, that's pretty good right there. All right, Leo. So now we're gonna go to the last Tom, and we're gonna try setting it the second way. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn on phantom power. Okay, it's on, and then I'm gonna raise the preamp, the gain. I'm going to see when it hits red, and when it hits red, I'm going to start lowering it down. All right, so go ahead, Leo.
Almost lost a mic there.
Okay, so I see it's already hitting red on my mixer here. I'm going to start lowering it. It's too hot, and that's kind of a deal with okay. It's gonna go away right now. It stays there, letting me know that I hit overload or I distorted. All right, Leo, cool. So what I did there, again, because that mic is receiving phantom power, it's just so much more sensitive, so it's gonna sound louder really quicker, and that's something to remember. Is that it? Okay, so now we're going to do the overheads of the drums. Those are going to be phantom power as well. I'm going to turn it on right now, and I'm going to do it one more time. I'm gonna put it at unity. I'll put the fader at unity, and now I'm gonna raise it till I'll keep raising it, keep raising it. Okay. Oh, you saw that? That was a good troubleshooting there. When he was hitting the cymbals, it wasn't overloading. But because these are the overhead mics. Once he hit the toms, it went to red. So I would see that, I'll be like, okay, it was too loud. Even though for the cymbals themselves, it wasn't hitting overload, it wasn't distorting. But once he hit the toms, it did. And because they're overhead mics, they are gonna pick up the toms. I'm lowering it again. And I'm gonna ask you, Leo, to play the whole kit and hit cymbals and toms. Okay. All right, yeah, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that where it's at right now. Again, overhead mics you're never gonna ride those really loud. Overhead mics is just gonna give a little bit of clarity over the whole kit. Sometimes people just think they're for the cymbals. We use them a lot for the cymbals, but also it's to get like a fuller, complete sound of the way the drum sounds naturally. When you're mixing with a mixer, we tend to like raise the toms one way, then raise the snare at another level. Well, when you use the overhead, you're getting a picture of the whole kit the way it sounds naturally. All right, because sometimes it could sound unnatural where you're like, okay, man, toms don't really sound that loud, or so and we always run them very low. Like, I mean, you never have to like raise the volume itself like super loud. It's just add a little bit, and then that should be enough. And then we have another overhead, but usually overheads are exactly identical. So once you set one, you can set the second one.
Hey, Mo?
Yeah, go ahead.
We got a question from Ray. He wants to take a look at the individual channels. So I don't know if, Eddie, you could switch over to the computer view, and maybe you could hit each thing really quickly, and then we could see, where the gain levels are different. For everyone.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to go through every channel. We're going to see how the gain is different for some of the mics. And again, because every mic is different and every source is so
channel 1 is the kick.
Yeah, channel 1 is the kick.
Yeah. So right here we're in really good levels, and it's at 28. Snare. The snare is at 18 decibels. Then we have tom 1. And you can see how these drop drastically. These are 9 dB, but these also have phantom power.
Yeah, these have phantom power, so they're way more sensitive.
Yeah. A similar thing for the Tom 2, or 13.
And then the overhead. And then play the whole kit.
And the idea here is that he could play as hard. The idea here is that he could play as hard as he wants, and it not clip, but he could play also soft, and you still get a good level.
Yeah, and that's important to know. A lot of people will say, and man, I get that every church is different, so there's room for that. But sometimes I hear, like, especially when I'm part of some of the like sound reinforcement or sound mixing groups for churches on Facebook, and you should look for them. We'll recommend some at the end. We'll remind ourselves to recommend you to some of the groups where that's why I talk about sound for church. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, you guys are playing too loud." Especially the drums. The drums drastically change in the way they sound if you hit it loud or soft. So when people say, "Oh, just play softer," it will sound so different that the song won't sound good. So that's something, just my 2 cents on that.
We got another really, really, really good question from Caesar. He's asking, after EQing separate channels, would you have to adjust the gain and volume levels since you're increasing and decreasing certain frequencies? And I know there's different schools of thought on how you EQ, but... Yeah, once you hear it together, I mean, you could. It's possible. It's possible you could see, like, hey, man, like the cymbal sounded good this way, or the snare. Now I'm hearing a lot of overtones. I'm hearing a lot of, like, mid-range when these 2 toms are played together, and that's EQing. And we're going to get that. That's a whole ball game right there, and Leo's going to get into that. Yeah, and I think the question specifically is, and I'll give you an example. So say we just did the kick, right? Mm-hmm. And we set the preamp. It's not clipping. It's sounding good. But then we start EQing and say we want to get some more of that slap. So we end up raising a lot of the highs.
Okay. Yeah, let us go into that real quick. So, could you go to the screen, the computer screen? I think that'll be the best. Okay. So if you see that line that's going across, that's unity. That's everything. I'm trying to find words to to explain this, but
Like a bucket with water.
yeah. So if the room was tuned perfectly, if the room where your church building was tuned perfectly, like those rooms that you hear that people test certain things on that they say they're completely dead. So what would happen is if you played an instrument right there, it would sound good. Right? The thing is that every building is not tuned. Like there's probably like a few buildings in the world that could be tuned this way. So your room will automatically have certain frequencies that sound louder. Think of when you go into a gym. Imagine somebody hitting a snare in a gym. How that would sound. Or imagine it like when somebody bounces the ball in the gym and you hear that ding, ding, that high. That means in that room, because it's so big and there's nothing absorbing sound, that frequency is going to sound so loud on its own. So now, for example, if I hit the snare and that frequency is in the snare, it's automatically going to sound way louder than it should be. So then I would go to the EQ and I would find what frequency is sounding extremely loud and I'll start lowering it. Also, the opposite of that, and I've been guilty of this because we all had to learn it, right? I would always raise the highs on the EQ for everything because I thought, oh man, it sounds good, and it kind of does. But what ends up happening is when we're talking about the sound, about a volume being at unity, like if we could take an overshot of the mixer right here, I'm pointing to this fader. It's at unity. It's at the U. The U is the line in the EQ that was halfway. Can we switch back to the other view for the computer? That where you see that line going across, that's unity. So if I raise the highs on a snare, like raise it right there, Jonathan. Okay, right there. Well, now some frequencies are higher than unity, where I have it at pointing. Now we could go back to the mixer view. Some frequencies just got higher than the U. Because on the EQ, I raised them higher than unity. Does that make sense? Is that making sense? I don't know. So when I raise the EQ, I'm raising the volume of certain frequencies. So even though my fader could be at unity, and that's like where I think, like say I already mixed and I say, okay man, everything sounds good here at this level. Once I raise the EQ, I'm actually raising the volume as well. So probably one of the easiest examples is like, hey man, you raise the bass on the EQ and it sounds louder, right?
Yeah. So and I think to answer Caesar's question is yes, there might be times when you need to. And I think it's when like you were mentioning, when you end up going above unity on the EQ, it's possible that it wasn't EQ, it wasn't clipping before that EQ, but then when you started EQing, it started clipping. So you could do one of two things. You could go back and lower the preamp, but I think a lot of people also, one of the things that I've been learning is trying to EQ going down instead of up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to go up and you need to add some certain things, but I think if you think about it in that way, you're always taking away frequencies you don't like instead of trying to add frequencies to enhance certain things.
Sculpting a rock.
Yeah, kind of like sculpting a rock, where you're actually taking parts of the way away from the rock to get the image you're looking for.
Yeah, because our instinct is always to raise stuff. And I've heard it from so many like sound engineers that I respect, that I know our man know what they're doing, and they always tell you, first try to take away what you don't like instead of adding. Because when you're adding, you're making it louder. Without moving the fader up and down on the mixer, but because you're adding it in DQ, you're actually making it louder. So if you had everything set right and it wasn't peaking, but once you raise that EQ higher, now you could be peaking. Now you could be overdriving the preamp. And I think I might be getting ahead of myself because I think Leo was going to cover some of that stuff.
Yeah, and just to circle back, like so, and I think that the other thing is if you end up taking away frequencies kind of from the low end, and Leo's going to talk about that right now. If you need to go up a little bit on the high end and the mid, like it compensates, and you most likely won't end up clipping. Jose had one more question. Where's the phantom power button, and how do you set it? So the phantom power, I don't know what type of mixer you have, but I think in just about every mixer, it'll always be labeled 48V. In the Personas, it's right here in the top corner on the app. And Leo, Eddie, if you could go to the mixer.
Sure. So on this mixer, it's right here. It's plus 48V. Sometimes it says Phantom. Sometimes it has like a little lightning logo. But yeah, depending on your mixer, just you can go to the user manual, and they have the layout, and they'll tell you where it's at and all that you need to know. So I think you guys covered this pretty well. I just want to reiterate this point that I think is really important, and that is that where you place your mic is super important. That's like fundamental. Now I do want to say this. If what you're miking doesn't sound good, you can't do anything to fix it on the mixer. For example, if your drums are not tuned properly, your mixer can't help you much there. You can do a couple things, but in reality, not enough to overcome it. So it's really, really important that we mic or that what we're trying to mic is at the best of its ability. And I know some of these things are out of our control as sound guys and gals, if there's any gal here. But in reality, if my snare doesn't sound good, it's gonna sound bad on the mix. Okay, so it's always really good. We were just to give you a quick example. We had the and I don't want to kill time, but we had the contract to do sound for Miel San Marcos, and we provided our sound system and our instruments. And the kick drum was not sounding good at all. And we had the mics and good mics and stuff, and we ended up having to tune the bass drum, and the sound guy was like, we had to mess with it so that it could sound good, and so that's just a simple story that to reiterate this fact that if what you're miking is not sounding good from the start, you're gonna have a hard time making it sound good on the mixer. Okay, so I don't want to kill more time. So we're gonna now use some tracks that we have from a recorded service. Now what we're getting is the raw audio. Okay, we're not getting anything processed. It's raw audio, and that's where we're at, right? Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna get the raw audio now. Please, they're kind enough to let us use it. So we're gonna hear mistakes. You guys know everything recorded. It's easy to hear mistakes and stuff like that. But really, what we're trying to do is get to learn these things, this mixing a little better. So as we go, I will stop and I will explain what I'm doing, and what Mo will help us too. We'll go through it and explain what we're doing. And then if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. We want to address them as they come up. All right, cool. So, all right. So let's go. Let's start. I personally like to start with the drums. Okay, I always like to start with the drums because they're gonna be definitely the thing that takes the most time to fix. So we're gonna start with the kick drum. So I'm selecting the kick drum here. So that's going to select it on my mixer, and Eddie, if we could put the computer so they can follow along what we're doing, and I'm going to explain to you guys what we're doing. So okay, go ahead, hit play. Let's start.
It's play.
Yeah? It's play. Oh, it's play. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's playing. Okay, so this is a song they're playing, and as you can see, they were talking about the different types of mics. This mic that we're using on the kick here, it's a really good mic. It's called the Shure Beta 91A. The bad thing, since it's a really good mic, it picks up a lot of drum, right? And that's something we can talk about how you fix that later on. But let's get it. Okay, here we're good. So we see our EQ. It's flat. So we have the gain is already set up. You guys see where the gain is hitting? The gain is hitting at about -12. So it's getting a little bit into yellow, like Mo was saying, where we kind of want it to be hitting. So let's see. All right, they can see EQ. Okay, so we're gonna start doing EQ. Now this is you gotta see your equalizer like a map, and you're showing and you're telling you gotta see it like a map, and you're mapping out your sound, right? So now the way we like and we practice equalization is we like to give all the low end to the kick, right? Because you have to place each instrument in a certain area of the EQ, and we'll show you guys right now what we're talking about. So like if you guys can see here, can you hit the RTA button on there? We should be able to see right now in a second the information from this RTA. We're in channel 48 now. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to the right channel so you guys we all can be on the same page here. Okay, here we go. Let's see, is RTA available? Perfect. You guys see that? Where the equalizer is telling us where the most information on the kick drum is coming from. So if you guys can see, it's starting at about, I would say like 20 hertz, and it's going all the way to like about 200 hertz. And that's where we're going to say this is where we want the foundation of our sound to be. So I'm going to turn on the EQ, and I'm going to activate it. And so what we're going to do first here is we're gonna move that equalizer button number 1. We're gonna move it to the spot where we want it. So we want it around 50 hertz, and then I'm gonna give it a little boost.
And that's like a sweet spot.
Y-
50 hertz. It's most of the time for your kick. That's the part that is gonna like punch. It's gonna
Right.
the anything under 50 hertz. You're probably not really gonna catch it. Our ears might not hear. You might feel it.
Right,
like
you'll feel it.
You'll feel but you won't hear it. But around 50 is a good place to give it a little. And you gotta use your ears and see if that's gonna work for your case. But that's a good like starting point.
Yeah. So I'm gonna boost the volume on the kick so that we can hear a little better. So as you guys can hear right here, it just sounds. It sounds pretty good because the drum is tuned properly. So, and the mic is pretty good. Can we restart that song, please? I'm sorry. And so you're getting a pretty good sound, but we want to get that nice punch. All right, you want that little punch on the mix. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna boost that 50 hertz. We're starting the song again. All right, so we're gonna boost that 50 hertz, and we'll let the song kick in. And there we go. All right. So here we go. We're going to boost it. So this is our opinion, how we like it. We cut. I learned this rule: cut the mids, a lot of the mids, and the reason on the drums, and the reason is because you're sculpting the sound that you want. You can get all the frequencies of the equalizing from the kick drum, right? But what we're trying to say, this is where we want the kick drum. We want it to be the foundation. So we don't need all this other information that's in like from well, I think we're gonna cut it like around 150 and up in the mids there. We're gonna cut some of that and we'll get to it. But anyway, if you guys got questions, please let us know. So here we go.
Could you raise the louder so we can
Yeah, here we go. So now number 2, I'm gonna grab that and I'm gonna scoot it closer. And then what I'm going to tell it to do is I'm going to lower that gain. See, because this is how it sounds if we boost the. Trying to kill some of that sound right there, because it's killing that little nice vibe with the lows. You see how it's defining that low end right there? It's so now we're gonna grab the next one. Yep. And we're gonna kill some of this sound right here. All right. So now we're getting a nice low end boost here. So what we're gonna do now is we want to get that little slap Mo was talking about, like that metal slap. We like it that way. We think it sounds pretty good that way. So we're gonna boost it right here, right where it is at 5,000. You see how it sounds pretty good? Like you're getting that low end and then you're getting that slap at the same time.
Turn on and off the EQ.
All right, so let's turn it on and off and let's see the difference. All right, here we go. Ready? It's off there. Do you guys hear how it got dull? Now we're going to turn it on. Yep. So I'm going to make a little adjustment here. Okay, so the next we're gonna move on to the. I like to play with the snare. So can we rewind that song one more time? And we're gonna select the snare on the mixer so that you guys can follow along. Can we put the mixer on here? All right.
What channel is that?
It's channel 52. Yeah, that one right there. Okay. You guys hear that at the end of the snare? Like you hear the hit and then you hear that We're gonna try to get rid of that, okay? You guys hear that? All right. So we're gonna turn on the EQ, and we're gonna find that So we're gonna do what's called the sweep. And what you do when you sweep is you look for that frequency that's causing that issue. So it's usually between 200 and 1,000 where you're gonna find most of the bad frequencies on your drums. So when it comes to snares and toms. So let's boost it.
Eddie, could you go over to the top camera?
All right, hold on, give us a second. guys hear that? Okay, hold on. Let me get my bearings again. All right, here we go. What do you think, Mo? Right there?
Where is it all the way up? 'Cause it's easiest to hear when it's all the way up. Let me play it again.
All right. Ugh.
Sweep it back and forth. So it's not there. It's not there.
That's not where what we want to kill is not there.
Keep moving. Keep moving. This is the easiest way to find bad frequencies. You boost the EQ.
You see right there? That's not helping either. That gives you like a little cardboard sound. We're trying to get rid of that. Gotta get the song back to the snare. Come on, guys. Okay. We're first gonna get rid of this
Right there.
frequency.
I
right
hear
there.
it right there.
We're gonna get rid of that. So we're gonna lower the volume of that. Okay, the other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use the next set of our frequency point to get back to that other sound we found.
And I think we were just told that you might not have been hearing the changes in EQ to the stream, but we fixed it. You should be able to hear the changes now.
So one of the things we don't want to crowd our sound for the full spectrum of frequencies for each channel. So what we're gonna do, this is really important. We're gonna go and we're gonna do what's called put the high pass filter. And with the high pass filter, think about it as a gate. It's telling you your high pass filter is kind of saying, hey, where I set you, I don't want to hear frequencies below this point that I'm going to put you in. So the snare, like we said, we put the kick drum at the bottom. We want that low boost and punch from the kick, not from the snare. We want it from the kick. So we're going to cut those frequencies that we don't need from the snare from the get-go, because it's going to clean your mix. So I want you guys to can we look at the screen? So I want them to see the equalizer for 52. Select the channel 52. Do you see it?
What is it called?
Snare. Let me see if I found it. All right, here we go. You guys look at the equalizer where we're gonna put the mouse right there so you guys can follow us. Okay, so we're gonna start killing some of that. So we're moving it. We're telling it we don't want to hear this. We don't want to hear this. Okay. Now we're going to give it a little bit of slap at the high end. And this cue, what this does, it tells it like I want to narrow.
This little
boost.
button here is called Q. Every mixture will have it. It'll be labeled like that. And with that, it's like pinching it.
Right, it's telling you, I don't want you to boost everything around it. I just want you to boost that little area right there. So,
Can you turn it on and turn off the EQ? So
sure.
So we're turning off the EQ now.
You guys hear it?
Now turn it back on.
Now let's hear it with the kick. Now, I really want to show the kick really quick. Watch the difference.
That's with the EQ off.
That's without EQ. Now we put the EQ on there.
And we realized that you were not hearing the changes a little bit ago.
Yeah, we just realized. I'm sorry. We didn't know you guys were not here. So now we're going to... All right. So now we're gonna go to Tom's.
I think we might have to
I'm sorry.
I said we might have to speed it up a little.
All right, but it's the same concept. We sweep, we find the frequencies we don't like, and we take those away. We cut those away so that what we have at the end is a better sounding drum. Okay.
Yeah, could you solo that tom or raise it so we could hear it, and then sweep and see if we could find the bad. Oh, we're
Okay.
gonna have to find a spot where.
We're looking for a spot where the toms are at.
Oh, that might be a little difficult, but we'll try it. Okay, I think I found them. All right, so you're gonna hear the toms right here. Let me see if I find it right here. Okay. right
Okay, it's just that little spot. We're gonna be cutting and going back and forth in there. So I already know, like I said, I don't want a lot of low end from the high toms, tom 1. So I'm gonna already cut to about let's try like 150, 130. Let's try 130. And I know already from the toms, I'm gonna cut some of the low mids because there's a lot of bad frequencies there. So let's boost that so let's hear it. You guys hear that? So we're gonna
and let's go back to you see where he has the EQ. I'll have it up here, like where I'm pointing right here. So what he did, he raised it. That's the easiest way. Again, this is the easiest trick in the book. You guys have this. Gotta have this in your back pocket. When you're EQing something, you pick up one point in the EQ in the filter, you raise it as high as you can, and you move it back and forth, back and forth.
you move it back and forth.
And you're gonna hear, and whatever sounds bad to your ear, then lower that.
Yeah.
Because when you picked up the EQ point all the way to the top, you exaggerated the sound, right? So you find, like, say right now we're hearing the toms, and it sounds, you hear all that boomy ugliness or nastiness. And when you sweep, and what I mean by sweep, he holds onto the point and he drags it back and forth across the EQ. Then he could hear the bad part, and then he could lower it. And as well, you may be able to hear maybe something that you're trying to hear, and then you'll know you'll find it. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
See, it kind of went away now because he lowered it.
So I'm looking for now. I'm gonna move on to the next one. I'm gonna look for the. I think it's right there somewhere. I think it's right here. I think it's somewhere around here. Okay, now we want to, can you pause it for a second? So now with the toms, once we cut that information that we don't want on there, now this is my personal preference, okay? Some guys like it a little bit more duller. I like when I want to hear that little, like when the stick hits the skin, I want to hear that, like, is it crack? Or
Yeah, it's like a little snap.
like a
or
little
something.
snap, little click. I like to hear that. So I boost a little bit of the highs. So let's play it again. Let's find where that's at. And it's not exaggerated, okay? We don't want to exaggerate that. All right, let's hear it with the snare and the kick. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, we're gonna. That's tom 2. We're gonna do the same thing. Okay, we're gonna find that. Well, first and foremost, we're gonna tell the equalizer we don't want to hear some parts of it.
Yeah. So what he's doing there, he's cutting the low end. So, and I'll stop right there. Just since we can't have every sound coming out throughout the whole EQ. So we kind of have to pick and choose. And the rule of thumb is you want your bass drum to be the lowest in the EQ always. Not the sometimes I for a long time I thought the bass the guy playing the bass should be the lowest on the band, and no, it's not, because the super low sub low tones
you can't even on the bass, the actual bass player, you can't hear the actual note. You'll feel it, but you won't hear it. So then we're going to leave those sub lows for the kick, because when the kick hits, it's not really a key. It's not really like a tone, like all the key. We're never going to say the kick
Right.
drum is off key.
Yeah.
You're just going to feel it like the sub low, right? But the bass, the electric bass, our ear could only capture the tones above, like, not the sub. And what I mean by sub lows, I'm going to point to the EQ right now. This part right here and the edge, that's
Right.
the sub lows. So we want to leave that for the kick drum. So the bass is a little bit higher. So what Leo's going to do, he's going to try to clean up a little bit by saying, well, the tom, we want the kick to be the lowest part. So by default, the toms shouldn't be going that far down there.
Right.
Because if the kick and the tom hit together, you're only going to hear the kick. You're not going to hear the tom hitting low. That subject, I mean, it's there's other schools of thought, and there's times where you could add more lows, and that's taste, and everybody could do it a certain way. But kind of like a rule of thumb to clean up your EQ will make everything sound a little bit tighter. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, that's good. So let's just keep going.
All right, yeah, we're gonna try to speed up here.
So again, I'm sweeping.
Yeah, you hear it. Yeah, I can
that?
hear it. Yeah,
That
you can hear it
flop?
right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
So,
ugly. Right
so we're
there.
gonna take that out. You see,
you saw
now
that?
it's sounding more natural. So let's go look for in the mid highs. Let's see if we find anything up there that we don't like. Whoop. See there, it sounds like you're hitting paper. It loses like the depth of the drum. So we're gonna get rid of that. Woo, it's sounding good. So now we're just gonna add a little bit of nice crispness with a little bit of high. Ooh, you hear that? Let's hear it without it. Now let's hear it with it. Oof, that sounds good. Let's move on. Do we have floor time somewhere around there? Look, I want you guys to see something here. This is right now what you're seeing on the equalizer is tom 1. Okay, what you're seeing, I'm about to switch it. I'm switching it now. That's tom 2, and I want you guys to notice that most drums are kind of gonna look alike, but you do have to sweep to make sure that you're going through the frequencies. The bigger the tom gets, the more lower end it's going to produce, and it'll change a little bit. But that's basically what you're looking for. Okay, that's a good starting place. Cut mids, and boost a little bit of the high, and it should start sounding pretty good. All right. So let's if you can find something.
Let me see. I think I found here. Hopefully it's something.
So I'm gonna already start cutting lows.
And I don't see. I don't think he hit the. He might have not hit.
Oh, there it
There
goes.
it goes. Okay, right there.
All right. So I like that low on the. I just don't want to interfere with. Oof. And by the way, we should mention that these floor toms, are mic'd with kick drum mics, so gives you that nice sound.
You have to find it again. Here it goes.
Oof. I love that. Let's see how that sounds there. Ooh, you see how that sounded terrible? We're going to cut that. And we're going to look for it over here. Ooh, you see how that sounded way better now? So let's find where in the mid. I think right here. Yeah, I like that. So we're going to cut some of that. You see how we're cutting basically close by the same places? And then we're going to give it a little boost. You got to be careful with this boost, especially on the low end, because if you're not careful, it will begin to sound like when you hit a basketball on concrete, that it sounds like it's that little echo of the air that you get. it'll start to sound that way. So you just got to be careful that you don't overdo it.
On the high end, right?
On the high end, yeah. I like it there. That sounds pretty good. Do we have the other sound somewhere?
No, that was it.
Well, we're just going to copy kind of give it the same look, because it should be somewhere around there. We're going to turn on the equalizer. We're going to give it a little boost right there.
And a lot of this work is EQing. I mean, and we'll talk about it towards the end. But man, the best thing you could do is capture your service on Sunday, take it home, put it in a DAW in a software like even GarageBand could do it. Like once you capture it, you put it in there, or invest money on getting, I don't know. There's so many. You could talk to us if you want specifics on some of the software the guys have used. Logic is a popular one. Pro Tools is another one. There's so many. And then you do this on your own time, and then you really get to know, okay, because man, like I think for a lot of us, we advance the most when we learn how to EQ, because then you make your mix not sound so crowded. Because, you know, when you hear like professional recording, it sounds like, man, so crisp, is because a professional engineer just, he got the whole EQ, and he put the drums in one section, he put the voices in one section, he carved out spaces for everything to shine. So then you don't hear everything crowding one section of the EQ. You hear every instrument in its own little pocket. And that's time, experience. I mean, we're learning as well. Everybody's learning, but nothing like trying it on your own, man, where you're not afraid of messing anything up. You're like, man, I'll mess it up on my computer, do it all over again. And then you really, really, really could dial it in.
Right. Okay, for today, now, when we talk about overheads, there's different schools of thoughts, right? There's some people that say you get the most of your sound from the overheads, and then you use your individual drum sounds to like kind of like give detail, but I personally like to use the overheads for cymbals mainly, since I'm spending a lot of time on the toms. But I think we have a question or something.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a second. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have Caesar asking, what kind of drum mics do you recommend?
What kind of drum mics do we recommend? It depends on your budget, man. If budget is unlimited, I would say I love, and this is what we use at our church, and I know Jonathan uses these too, the Shure Beta, was it 98s? 98As. Those are incredible. They give you really full sound, and if you tune your drums right, and those will give you amazing sound. Now, with that said, I have used, and we've used until recently in our church, what was like the Shure PG 56, which is the
lower end,
Shure budget Shure stuff, and they were sounding great too, right?
Now what I could say though is, so these guys are drummers, so they think a lot more about drums than I do. As a regular listener, I would say, man, invest first in a kick drum mic.
Yes.
Especially for broadcast. You want to have a really good kick drum mic, the Beta 90, what is it?
91A.
The Beta 91A will give you lows and will give you highs, so will give you that crisp slap. The toms, of course, man, if your budget grows, or if you could get a package together, you know, there's some really good things that we could get to maybe towards the end.
Yeah, we can give you guys some recommendations towards the end. You got something else? Okay, let's keep going, because I know we're running short on time and we still have a lot left. So I'll tell you what. Can we play? And then I'm just gonna bring up the volume on all the drums, and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Okay. We're starting with the kick to give that foundation.
Right.
Snare is very important. Snare is very important. Like I like to think about it as the vocals and the snares should be probably some of the loudest you can hear on a mix, because the snare is keeping time. But if you got a bad sounding snare, I wouldn't be raising it, you know. So there it goes, you know. If your snare is not coming out that great, well then you might not lower it. But if you got a really good snare sound, you want to make sure that's up in front, especially on CCM music, like where a lot of churches are singing right now. Bethel, all that, you know, Passion, all those type of music, man. You'll hear the snare very up front.
Yeah. So what I have here is the overhead mic, and what I'm doing with the overhead mic is I'm gonna clean up some of the low end. I don't want to hear this low end stuff on the overhead mic. I just want definition on the cymbals with the overhead mic. So that means cymbals are more than the high end. So we're gonna boost some of the highs on the, and we're gonna close. Ooh, that's harsh, right? We don't want that. We're gonna close the Q really quick. Oh, sorry. Gotta select it for it to work. So we're gonna find where we're getting on the overheads like bad frequencies. Let's start here in the bottom. You guys hear that? See how that sounds terrible? We're gonna get to that right now in a bit. Well, let's cut it with this one. See how that dramatically changes it. We're gonna go with that. Let's bring everything back in. Then you're gonna lower it because you don't want it that high. Okay, so that's, I mean, this is a rough basic thing we do with that. So what are we gonna move on to next?
I would like to go over the vocals, and then we're going to open it up. Believe me, we're going to open up to questions. We want to see like maybe some of the biggest questions you guys got, and if some of these topics were maybe more a little bit more advanced, or if you have way even more questions that we could like look at. I mean, we want to help everybody as much as we can. So I would like to hear. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we're gonna move on to the vocals because just as important as drums is vocals. You need a good vocals. Now we spent a lot of times on drums because that's the most intricate part of a mix, I believe. When you're putting a live mix together, the drums it's so many pieces and they all work together, and you have to blend them right. So that's why we spent a lot of time on them.
Yeah, a lot of times when you hear a mix, especially a broadcast mix, and you think it sounds bad, I'll guarantee you 80%, 90% of the time is the drums. They might be crowding too much that the vocal you can't hear it, or the vocal and the cymbals are clashing, or the snare. See, the snare and the vocals sit very close to each other. The snare might be too loud that you can't hear the vocals. So we always think, man, you got to make the drum sound good. When you think about a good mix, is because they make the drum sound good. And that's what we're spending time in it. And we understand it's a process of learning, and it takes time.
Absolutely. So all right, so let's we have a female vocal in this one. Let's start putting it up.
Eternidad en ti está mi identidad, Cristo
Okay,
Jesús.
let's start.
Me
We're gonna
haces
sweep, okay?
So it's going to do the same process, sweep
So,
the EQ.
well, I'm sorry. First, we're gonna take away the low end that we don't want to use, that we don't need.
Tu nombre.
And this is a rule of thumb on vocals. Always take the low end off.
Yeah.
You'll see something called, and write this down. This I get confused. High pass or low pass?
Low pass. I'm sorry. High pass filter.
You're going to see a button that says high pass filter on every channel. If it's a vocal channel, you're going to want to bring it at least up to 100. Bring it down to 100.
I like about 130.
Okay.
Like when you see a sound system in like with subwoofers and top speakers, their subwoofers don't usually start to about 120 hertz. That's where they send that information and lower to the subwoofers. So we're not sending voice there, right? So we're going to cut about 130 because we don't need that information, okay? So let's start. Go.
Yeah. So again, rule of thumb, always lower the high pass on vocals.
And as we do this, I always like to start sweeping from the bottom up. It just helps me. It's just my way of doing it, okay?
Could you do it again so we could go to the channel and I'll show it to you and we could switch to the computer screen, Eddie?
Sure.
Let me just find it here.
What are we doing again?
The vocal?
Yeah.
We're going to do the high pass.
Oh, the high pass filter?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so you see the EQ on the left, he's going to lower it to cut the lows off. Go ahead.
All right, here we go.
Tu nombre en alto está, tu majestad brillando
About
está,
130,
tu
yeah.
amor por
And
mí
that
por
automatically
siempre
starts
será.
cleaning up the mix right away.
Cristo Jesús,
Do that to
sé
as many
feliz.
instruments as you can.
Absolutely.
So most of the instruments will want you to do that.
except of course the bass and some instruments. But vocals automatically cut it out because you're cutting out. Otherwise, you get noise there that eventually starts making everything sound more crowded and more crowded and more crowded. So
Right.
I'm gonna play it again.
So now we're going to the low mid. We're going to boost it and we're going to sweep.
He's gonna find the bad sound.
Estoy completo en Cristo. Él vive en mí. No vuelvo
Right there.
atrás.
I don't like that. Let me stop you right there.
¿Cuántos estamos felices?
Did you guys hear that? How when he got to that point, it sounded so exaggeratedly bad. So now you know, hey, that's the part I want to lower.
All right, so we're going to lower.
En este día, porque el Señor es la única razón de nuestro gozo. Soy feliz.
You see how that starts? It even sounds like a little more fuller because we're cutting down that frequency. So now let's move on to the other one. Let's try to find that other one.
Dilo. Soy feliz. Él vive en mí.
Oh, you hear it right there?
Right there. I heard
Puedo
it.
danzar.
We're going to cut that a little bit.
Y celebrar.
And these changes should be gradual. You know, as you gradually, you're not gonna want to like carve it all out.
So now we're going to add what we're going to add air or crisp, right? That's a
Presence, crisp.
It's called presence. Some people call it air. It really, you give it that little crisp sound and it sounds pretty good. So we're going to show you where to find that. We're going to boost the highs. We're going to find it, okay?
I think it's there.
Yeah, right there.
Now, obviously, that's too much, right?
Yeah.
So he's gonna bring it down.
All right. Okay. We're doing better. Okay. What else? So we have that. Anybody have? Oh, we're gonna get back to the questions later. Is everybody following? Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Is everybody following all right? I hope so. So what else do we have that we can look at?
For EQing, I think that covers most of it. I mean, the bass. Maybe we could go over the bass. Just
Maybe keyboards and bass. Well, keyboards. Look, this, and I want to point something out about this bass that we're gonna hear right now. The bass player is plugging into a preamp, so he's already sending the signal to the mixer the way he likes it. Okay, so we just got to make sure that we're putting it in the right place in the mix. Is that a fair way to put it?
For most of most of our the way our churches are set up, that's gonna be it. You know, if when he hits the note in the room at the church, and you hear like something rattle or echo like really bad, then you're gonna have to sweep and find what that is and lower it. I think we might have a question coming up, guys.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Caesar is asking, where is the high pass filter on the mixer view? So if you go to the computer.
Okay, if you it depends on what brand. If you have a Behringer, you're gonna be something called HPF. Like in this one, I'm pointing to it on with there. And here you're gonna dial it in. You're gonna raise and lower it on a Behringer, on a Wing, on something else. I wouldn't be able to tell you right off the bat, but it's gonna be in the channel strip. Just click on the channel. You're gonna see it there.
It's always gonna be on the channel strip.
A quick Google search will give it to you. If you can't find it, let us know what's the mixer, and we'll find it. We'll let you know where it is.
Yeah, we can let you guys know.
Yeah, but a good thing, man. I seen the pros do this. We have the privilege of when we've done sound for bigger groups, we just set up the equipment. Then their sound guy does the service or does the concert. So we have a
Bird's eye view.
Yeah, bird's eye view of what they're doing, and a lot of stuff that we've learned that we've picked up from them, seeing them how they do it. They carve out all the stuff that they don't want. Whereas before, I always was more of the philosophy of like, oh man, I need this, so let me raise it. They start off by cutting out things, like, so all the low end, cut it out if you don't need it, you know. Yeah. So again, the kick drum, I wouldn't cut it off the kick drum because that's what's going to be your sub lows. Right next to the kick drum and somewhere around there's going to be your bass, and then snare and vocals sit around the same part. And a lot of it is trial and error. You, man, just sitting there and learning how to use the EQ. Then once you learn how to use the EQ, you'll know And it takes time to really maybe develop a style or develop a taste, but you'll know what it is. Any other
Absolutely.
questions?
No, let's go. Let's go. Well, if they come in, we'll deal with them right now as they come in. So we're gonna look at bass. So let's turn on bass. We're gonna switch over to the bass channel.
Okay.
It's playing.
Okay, it's fine.
Can you go over to the mixer channel, please?
Okay.
You know what? I think you stopped it.
No, it's.
Yeah, I think you stopped it. Yeah. You guys hear that? Okay. So as you can hear, the bass is already coming in pretty nicely processed. Okay, hold on. We have another question.
Gino is asking, it's got to be different when a bass player is using a pedal board versus a cab, no?
Absolutely. Well, in some ways.
In some ways, yeah. It really, the pedal, so a cab already has a preamp built in with a speaker.
Correct.
A pedal is just taking the speaker out.
Correct.
It's very similar. A pedal, all it did is for the guys that didn't want to have a speaker with them, it put all what's engineered into the cabinet to make it sound a certain way. They all like packaged it into a pedal. So I think
we recommend that route, by the way, because the more noise you take away from the stage, and you control coming out of your sound system, the better it's gonna be. So that's the best route if you can. But like Mo said, it's just a pedal is a bass cab without the speakers, pretty much.
Especially if you already have subwoofers at church. I'm a bass player, so it's been hard for me to transition to without the speaker. But I think if they're team players, I think that they'll get rid of the speaker. If you have subwoofers, if you don't have subwoofers, man, I wouldn't recommend it because you're not gonna hear the bass. Another question?
Yeah, well, he's just following up and saying he's referring specifically to EQ wise, like as far as EQ goes.
Yeah. So
Right.
because on a pedal you're EQing. The pedal is a preamp. So the pedal is putting color to the sound. A speaker, like a full bass cabinet, it's coloring the sound as well, but then it's amplifying it, which also produces its own color, right?
Correct. But I think maybe what he's referring to is that when you have a bass cab with speakers and you equalize, you're equalizing to the room.
Yeah, it's affecting big time.
Yeah, so it might come across different to the mixer, and you'll have to change more then on the mixer. But in this case, the situation that we have, it was not equalized to the room. It was equalized to headphones that the bass player is using. So it's easier for us to deal with it.
Yeah, I think for today's environment, if your church already has subwoofers, the route is to go to a pedal, a preamp pedal.
That's our recommendation.
That's the big recommendation because it's going to clean up your sound big time. The mixer will be able to control the bass a lot better. I know it's not possible for all of us to get there right now, but that's something to kind of go for.
That's a good goal to have. Okay, let's play the bass. Let's see what we feel. So I'm gonna play with the kick to see how they're vibing together. Okay.
Do you guys notice that the bass is not lower than the kick? The sub lows are coming from the kick. The lowest part of the EQ that you can hear right now is the kick, not the bass. The bass has the tone, so the bass is gonna sit a little higher on the EQ than the kick.
Yeah, the bass is definitely the kick drum is giving us that foundation on the lows, and the bass is sitting higher on the EQ. So it's like Mo was saying, it's tone. So in this case, we don't really have to do much to it, right?
No, I think that sounds pretty good as well.
That sounds pretty good.
The only thing you gotta look out for the bass is always make sure you can hear the tone.
Yeah.
Like you can hear the key. And if
not rumble.
Yeah, not the rumble, but more like you could hear like that it's making an actual tone. That's what you want to look out for. And that's going to sit not in the sub lows. It's going to sit about right, kind of like where the EQ is right now, the first point.
So it's about a little bit over 100 megahertz.
And I'll switch to, if you could switch to that view, Eddie, for the top view. And
oh, yeah.
Around that part. That's where you're going to see the tone start coming through.
And that's sitting exactly at 130 hertz. That's where that's sitting. So All right, so let's piano. The piano sounds companies that sell these pianos spend thousands of dollars on research to get the sound right. So don't ruin it with your equalization unless you absolutely have to.
For the room, maybe.
For the room more than for broadcast. Okay, that's when you're gonna mess with it. But we'll hear it right now, and if we have to make changes, we'll point it out and we'll get to it. So what else are we missing, Mo?
I think that's where I would really like to open up to see maybe some of the challenges that you guys are facing so that we could try to address as much. But you want to hear the pianos real quick?
Sure, let's play.
Go ahead. Yeah, so they I mean, it would be more for the room. If you were in a room like in your church building and some frequencies were sounding crazy, you would find them and lower them on the EQ.
For the room.
Yeah, maybe I would put a low pass, a little bit of low pass.
Sure. Yeah, let's
like take away the sub lows off the EQ off the keyboard because you're not gonna hear it. The kick drum is gonna win. If you have the piano doing lows and you have the kick drum's gonna win no matter what. So might as well clean it up a little bit.
Yeah. So we cleaned up some of that.
Now, if it's a solo act, like say for example, we're gonna get to a question right now. But say for example, there's a visitor that a musical visitor at your church that's only playing guitar. Say you have a mariachi person singing, and it's only him and the guitar. Then at that point, I would raise the lows on the guitar because it's only him.
You want to give them the full spectrum of the EQ so it could sound full.
Yeah, but if it's within a band, I would cut the lows off the guitar. But if it's a solo person, just him and his acoustic guitar, I would make sure he has some because then it would sound weird.
Okay, we have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Caesar is asking, I don't want the bass to be buried underneath the kick drum. Is there a sidechain compressor capabilities in the Personas?
The Personas compressor. Now, compression is a whole different animal, guys, that we're not going to be able to get in too much today. But I don't know I don't think it has a sidechain as far as I know. Do you see it in the software?
I've seen it before, but
because Personas will give you different options. If you have a Personas, I love this compressor. The FET compressor is my favorite, but you have to learn how to use it because it works a little bit different. But it has key source, which might be it. Now, Caesar, it's totally taste. Like mixing is totally taste, but we do strongly believe that the kick should be the foundation, and when you give way of the lows to the kick, the bass is not gonna like drown out.
Yeah,
the bass will be in a really good spot where it shines, and the more you put different instruments in their spot in the EQ, the more they're gonna shine, each individual one.
Yeah. And again, that's EQing, that's trial and error, that's listening to both.
Right.
But and now if you have a key bass, that might be slightly different because the key bass will hit the sub lows, but a regular strung bass will not hit sub lows. And I mean, I know there's pedals, I know there's like the octave pedals that you can use to hit some of the sub lows, but that's more, man, that's like for like if you're doing like some Planet Shaker songs do that, like they go very low. In those cases, I think I would want to hear the sub lows off of bass. But man, that's more like electronic music. I think that's taste and that's like dialing it in for something specific. But for everyday CCM, which I think is generally what we're talking about, Christian contemporary music, the bass is more of a rock bass, so it's gonna sit a little bit higher on the lows. Right. Now, again, if it's electronic music, well, I wouldn't cut the lows completely off a keyboard, a key bass. But right. I do know that the sub low, the if it's an effect, it's gonna come through. You should have it there. But in that sense, you might have a point there. That's a taste of your trial and error.
I know one of the ways that I've experimented with the Persona specifically on with compression and the kick is I use the soft patching. So I'll put the regular kick on 1, and then I'll EQ it and even add a little bit of compressor. But then I soft patch it to 2, and duplicate
You duplicate the channel.
Yeah.
duplicate the channel, and then I compress the heck out of that one, and then I
Yeah.
blend the two together.
Yeah, and those are some of the more advanced stuff that we could even get into it today. We just want to not take everybody's time if some of these concepts might be like, man, like you might like, hey man, I'd rather take a step at a time. And I think it's a good point to maybe define what compression and gating does for us that are
Sure.
maybe starting off on this journey.
Let's go to the kick drum. We can show them there really quick.
All right, because right now we talked about kick. We won't spend as much time on these other things, but we want to define them so at least you know what they are, and we could always like connect or something.
So before he hits play, I wanna make sure this is clear. The cleaner your sound is, the better it's gonna sound overall, right? Like, so if you put the mic in the right place, if your drum is tuned correctly, and you put the good mic placement, you got good gain, you're already in a good spot, right? So that once you have it in the mixer will give you abilities to like, we're gonna use gate right now. We're gonna show you what the gate does, and we're gonna set it, and it's gonna clean up the sound a lot better. So go ahead.
Yeah,
And then we'll compress a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe a good thing we could do is like, you're gonna start off with the kick.
Yeah.
So start off with the kick, man. Take your time, or I mean, like, show the steps, and then kind of zoom by the rest of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
So you'll see it slow done on the kick. So what the gate does before he starts, the gate is software. It's a tool in the mixer that what it does, it closes and opens the sound. So, for example, you're going to hear very clearly on the kick. We're only going to want to hear when the kick hits. When it's not hitting, we're going to tell the microphone, shut off. So that's going to make everything sound cleaner, very clean. So again, what the gate is going to do in the software, Leo's going to tell the mixer, when you start hearing sound around this whatever dial, open the channel up.
The dB.
Yeah, and when the decibels start hitting like this level, close it off, and we're gonna see that. All right.
And it's not necessarily a volume thing; it's a balance of different tools that you have to find the right balance. So let's go.
You have the keyboard select. I think. Oh.
No, I have the kick. Let me lower the key. So you see, it's picking up everything. We just got the kick drum going right now. So can you show them the gate?
I'm trying to find it.
It's the first one up here. Oh,
here's a kick. All right.
All right. So we're gonna engage the gate.
Okay, you turned it on.
So we're gonna find what the threshold is. That's the line where we're telling it shut off here, turn on here. Okay. So we're gonna tell it. We're gonna find that spot. You see how it shut off? But maybe it's doing too much. There we go.
It's open. It's open.
We're gonna do too much and then cut back, okay?
You see what that did? You see what it did? It made it sound cleaner because now the mic is not picking up all the other sounds.
But we overdid it on purpose.
We did it overdid it. It's not even that.
Look, you see how you can still get like the nice full sound of the kick?
Like maybe disengage it, shut it off. See, I'm hearing the snare there.
And you're hearing those little rings on the toms too. Kind of subtle, but it's there.
Then engage it.
See, that makes a world of a difference in your mixing, okay, when you're broadcasting. So now, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what gating does, and it's
so let's
very
do it to
important.
the snare really quick,
Yeah.
okay? We're gonna. Snare. We're gonna turn it on.
Whenever you're doing this, man, you gotta be careful with this tool with vocals. If you do it to a voice, usually it doesn't sound good.
I would say don't do it on the voice. I don't like it on voice.
Yeah, so don't do it.
See, what I'm trying to get I'm trying not to lose the attack on the snare here, okay? I want it to sound like a nice solid hit, but I'm trying to lose some of the other stuff.
And there's only so much you could do.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you might be affecting it negatively. So.
Oh no, the song's not done. There we go. That's too much. That's still a little too much. I think we found our spot. Come on. What do you think?
Right there. I think that would be good.
Okay, now let's combine the kick with that. And the toms don't have them, so we're not going to go through the toms because it's going to take a lot of time. But that's the idea, guys. That's the idea. You got to do it to the drums, and it's going to tighten up the drums, and it's going to make it sound really sweet. But, all right, so we have some other tracks, but these are prime tracks. I'm not going to fight the studio engineer that they paid thousands of dollars to make it sound good. I'm not going to do that. So we're just going to start blending it in. Am I missing anything more that we want to mention? No. So let's start talking about balancing the mix. I'll give my first thought, and then you can chime in. Balancing the mix really has to do where you see. It's not about having something louder than something else. Period. It's about finding. You have all these elements, all these instruments, and you want them to balance together. And when they balance together, they're going to sound amazing. So that's what we're going for. So this is my little trick that I like. And I learned this from Danny, actually. So I'm going to first set the low end stuff and the vocals. And when I want them to blend together pretty well. So let's start by doing that. So maybe include the bass on there. So far, they're blending pretty good. So then I'm going to add the vocal. That's the other vocalist is singing, but we don't have that channel here.
Te exaltaré, día y noche adoraré, porque libre soy en ti.
All right, now we're going to add the rest of the drums. We're going to add the snare right now.
Las cadenas fueron rotas.
When he starts playing it.
En tu nombre yo he vencido, libre soy. Libre soy. Me hiciste libre. Me hiciste libre por tu gran amor. Me hiciste libre y hoy puedo gritar que libre soy.
I want to mention this really quick. When once you've set the low and the vocals, then in between you start to fill in everything else. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next.
Que tú me hiciste libre.
And then we'll be making other adjustments as we feel we need.
Las cadenas fueron rotas en su nombre. Yo he
Here comes the
vencido,
tracks.
libre soy. Libre soy. Me hiciste libre, hoy puedo danzar. Me hiciste libre por tu gran amor. Me hiciste libre y hoy puedo gritar.
The kick is a little loud, huh? Or everything needs to catch up to it.
Maybe a little bit loud. I think a little bit more snare. Just a little bit.
Okay, I want to point out a couple things. Let's pause it for a second. All right, I just want to point out a couple things. Now, this is without using compression. Okay, so there's like the vocal got really loud in some parts. and we kind of lost the vocalist because we're not using compression so far.
Can we define compression? I know we define the gate.
Sure. So a compressor is pretty much you've set a point in the volume of your channel, and a compressor tells you what a compressor does. It says when the signal gets to this point that you set, it's gonna help you not let it get super far up. You get to tell it how to lower that signal or not let that signal go higher. Right?
Yeah.
That's a very basic way of putting it.
It's putting like a ceiling. It's not a limiter. It's very similar, but
A limiter is like putting a brick wall and it's not going to cross.
yeah. So this one, a compressor is telling it when the sound gets to this point, lower down, and then the compressor has dials where you could tell it how fast to lower down, how fast to let it come up. These are some of the more advanced stuff, and if you're into it, man, there's a wealth of information on YouTube. You can reach out to us. We're always learning because something you got to remember: a compressor will change your EQ. The compressor will change the way something sounds. So
it colors the sound.
It colors the sound. Yeah. So you can make it sound good. You can make it sound bad. For sure, man. You should have at least some of it on your preacher, because that's going to help if it's a dynamic preacher and he raises his voice, and that's most of our in the type of church that we go to. We have very dynamic preachers that they're not monotone. They're up and down. So we have to help them. The last thing a preacher wants is for you to squash it all the way down, because you take the life out of them. But you want to make sure you don't let it get up so high that everybody in the congregation is uncomfortable, because it's piercing. Right. You still want to be able to let the preacher communicate his message and be dynamic. So we don't want you to like go in on Sunday and put the compressor all the way up, because, man, they're going to run you out of the sound booth. You don't want to have it that way. But you do want to control some of them. Some of the settings, and again, I think the best way to do it, man, is learn it. I mean, you could reach out to us. We'll give you some starting points. Yeah. There should be some starting points on the mixture as presets. Just remember, they were made for probably a male singer. They were not made for a preacher. A preacher, well, man, he could be very dynamic and he could really push hard. So you want to make sure when that ceiling hits, it's not squashing them down, because I think, man, that could really, you could really make it difficult for a preacher if he feels he's not expressing himself. So be very careful with that. Yeah. And also you want to make sure you get a handle on those piercing, like because in your building, again, your building has a built-in EQ. It just sounds sound louder. You want to make sure that the things that are sounding the loudest there, you're able to kind of put a little bit of a handle on it.
Yeah, and also when you use compressors like on drums and stuff like that, if you overdo it, you take away the edge, the bite of the hit. So those are things you got to keep in mind. That my rule of thumb for me when I'm messing with compressors is I don't want to go more than -3 dB. That I'm taking away 3 decibels of sound from the drum. Like I try to keep that rule, and as I'm hearing, like, okay, I got to 3 dB. Where am I? Do I need to take more? Do I need to keep it a little less? Do I need to back off, get a little stronger, whatever it would be? Because just as an example, one time I had it really high on the kick, and I was losing the slap that I'm looking for on the EQ. It was like Mo said, it's letting you boost the volume on that slap, right? Remember you were talking about the volumes on how you use EQ, and so when you put when you're telling it, give me more highs on the kick drum, and then you put a compressor on it, you end up compressing a lot of that high end more than the low end, just as a simplified example. But anyway, that's a whole topic for another day.
Yeah, compression, you could do a lot. There's and I'll just touch quickly on it. There's something called parallel compression. These are some of the more advanced studio stuff people do, but now because these mixers are capable of doing that, and that's where you could duplicate a track. And
some of these mixers are capable.
Yeah,
not all of them.
You could duplicate a track in the software of the mixer and make something, and then compress just the top end. So imagine you having 2 identical tracks, 2 identical snares. On one of them, you'll chop off the high peaks, and you just leave a middle, and then so that middle will make the original snare sound like thicker and fuller. And you could do that to tracks, you could do it to a lot of things, but there's also catches, so you gotta be very aware. You could actually degrade the sound if you don't do it right.
So there's a lot of stuff you could research on that.
So guys, like you guys can see, we can spend easily another 2 hours or hour and a half talking about this and get deeper in other things. But we're out of time today that we have allotted for tonight. The one thing I do want to make sure that you guys know before we leave, you're gonna go out from your mixer, like if you're plugging from with a cable from outs of your mixer into to a Blackmagic or whatever else a video software you have that's gonna be like a jack, like we had talked at the beginning. You want to make sure you're coordinating with the video person, because it might sound great in your headphones in the mix, but if it's not going out of your main master volume for the video, if it's going too hot, it's gonna ruin the mix. If it's going too low, it's gonna ruin the mix. So you want to make sure you guys are talking to each other and coordinating and really working together. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got Jose asking, what's a good compressor to get or use?
What do you mean? Like physical or?
Maybe most. If you have a digital mixer, you're gonna have a compressor already there.
Did Jose say they had a PreSonus? I think he said they had a PreSonus in Madison.
Every digital mixer will have one. Now, anything you've bought in the last 7-8 years, it'll have one in there. It might just be having to learn how to use it there. The particular one, there's outboard ones. That's studio quality. Like, man, I think we're in a different league if you're heading that way. A compressor of that sort will cost more than the mixer. So,
yeah, and I also know, like, and we could talk about this later, offline with you. But I know PreSonus and Behringer, which are two of the more common ones that churches use, mixers. There are software compressors, third-party software compressors.
Yeah, like
that
upgrades.
That you could
Right.
buy off of them and insert into
Correct.
your board.
Yeah, so they come stock with, like, out of the box, they'll come with one. If you want some of the higher quality ones, we've kind of dabbled a little bit. Some of us have more into that. I mean, to boost the quality, you could definitely go there. If you've never used a compressor, I'll say start learning the one that's on your board.
Correct.
Once you learn how to, like, get the most out of that one, then you could consider, or it would be a good idea if you think that you could bring an outboard, like a different one, either buy an upgrade for your mixer that comes with it. These mixers now, they do that. You could buy an upgrade that'll download a better compressor, or it'll behave differently, which might give you better quality. But I will say start off learning what's here. Back in the old days, we had the outboard ones. These are way better. These are way more. If you want outboard, and what I mean outboard is meaning like it's separate from the mixer. I mean, you could easily spend in the thousands for that. And I would say software is probably the way to go. And whatever is in stock is probably the best thing you could do right now. I had go ahead.
No.
Questions? I want to remind everybody that this is learning, and we're not going to learn overnight. Sometimes some of these topics, because they're technical, might seem way like, man,
Yeah.
it's so much. We were all there too at one point, and we're still there in some areas. So I think the key here is it has to be a passion, man. Like man, you really like this, and get into it, learn it. Like we were saying, get yourself a DAW. A DAW is just software to mix. You learn how to, if you need help trying to figure out how to pull the audio off your mixer, man, shoot us a text. We'll point you in the right direction of how to do that with your mixer. But capture your Sunday service, or record, maybe it's a better word. Record your Sunday service to a laptop. Then at home, man, go into it. Try some of these crazy things we talked about. I mean, learn how to use every tool to the best of your ability.
Some days are going to be great. Some days are going to be really frustrating.
Yeah,
You want to throw your laptop across the room.
Yeah, and I think that's also a lot of sometimes our church culture will say, "Hey, man, don't touch the mixer." Like, we just paid this guy to come and set it. So, man, we're afraid to even, like, turn it on or move anything. So a good way is, like, man, take it home. Pull the audio tracks from a Sunday service, take it home, break it, make it over again, and leave the one at church alone. Learn how to use the tools. I think that's the best thing you could do.
Yeah. And we wanna let you guys know that we're willing to coach you guys and walk with you guys through your mix and improving it and give you tips. Absolutely, we're willing to do that with you guys, and we're getting ready to launch a coaching program, and you guys are more than welcome to look into that, and we would be honored to walk with you guys and help you guys really improve your mix. Because I'm going to say it again because we mean it. We believe in the local church, and right now, and I think going forward, live mixing and mixing in church as well. It's super important. So we wanna do our part to help you and for you to grow. Again, we taught you. We went through a lot today, to be honest with you guys. We went through a lot, but we think these are the most important things. And then there's levels to this, right? Compression is another level. Parallel compression is another level. Mastering, we didn't even touch mastering. Mastering is another level that's super important, especially for broadcasting. And so, but thank you guys. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. I don't know if I'm missing anything, guys.
Jump to
Yeah,
questions.
we can jump to questions,
Or
sure.
challenges. Maybe some of the challenges that you're facing, because I think that would help us. Maybe we could start off with some of the challenges that we face, and then we'll
Sure.
open it up.
We're gonna ask them to go back to Zoom, right?
we could keep
we
it.
could do
Oh,
it.
we can do it through text. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, like,
Okay, so I don't know if you think of something off the top.
I'm going back. Okay, so we were not doing broadcast at all. We were not when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
We were not set up.
We're not even thinking
We
of
were not
live
even
stream.
thinking about live streaming. We were forced into it, and man, I believe that God's hand is there also, right? Reach more people this way. So we went from learning how to do everything like this for live sound, which is a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah, definitely.
You could kind of not have it completely dialed in and still be able to produce a service that man, for the most part, people will enjoy. And then we went to live mixing or to streaming mixing. And man, every mistake you did on the mixer, people are gonna hear it. Some people could be turned off by it. Some of the challenges was getting our video to the level that our sound was in the building, so that they both could complement each other.
Right.
And we're dealing with tight budgets because of what's going on, and it was a challenge. But I would say that when we went from at the beginning, we were pre-producing the services, meaning we were recording them. Then in a computer, we would, in a laptop, mix it in the box, they say, right? Mix it there, and then have our video guy, Eddie, put everything together. It allowed us to do a lot of fixing, because we had time to react to mistakes, or if we had the privilege or the opportunity to hear it and be like, oh, it doesn't sound good, let me hear it, and then we're like, oh, we gotta change it. Now we're doing it live, right? So whatever we did, we're going. So I think one of the biggest helps, or the biggest things that we've done that helped us, is record it, and then play it back.
Yeah.
Go back on Sunday and hear it.
And it never stops.
Yeah, it never stops. You got to keep doing this. You got to keep innovating. Also, a thing that I think would benefit everybody. We're trying to do this as best as we're trying to get there. We've done it to a certain extent. Is try to, if you have your rehearsal on Saturday, for example, or on Thursday, broadcast that to a private channel. To a private channel that only your team listens to, and then go back and hear it and see, okay, man, how can I improve it?
Yeah.
Because, man, it's really like frustrating, right? When on Sunday you're like, man, it didn't sound as good as I thought it was going to sound, right? And we had no time to react. So, man, like, we're trying to get there as well. I know some of the people here have done it. Maybe Jonathan could speak to that about pre-producing, like, your practice, like, go on your rehearsal, go all in, like if you're doing it live.
Yeah, that's exactly what we started to do to try to better our mix, because like a lot of you, we were sitting there listening back after Sunday service and then hearing all the mistakes, or hearing that the volume was too soft and you couldn't hear. But definitely, we do it on Saturdays. So every Saturday we come in the morning and we live stream our full service during practice, and then
To a private channel,
to
right?
a private channel, yeah, to a private YouTube and Facebook channel, and then we get a chance to go back and listen. This brings us, I think, to a good segue to some of these questions. We got some good challenges and questions. Daniel is saying one of the challenges we have is on the board mix. It sounds good, but when we transmit live, the volume is usually low, or the music is not well balanced. What can we do? Any recommendations?
I think that's it, because everybody's in there. You got to remember, YouTube, the mixer's producing a very high quality sound. YouTube is chomping that down. It's everything you worked for. YouTube is saying, I'm going to only take 10% of that. So it's affecting your sound big time. So what sounds good on your headphones might not necessarily sound the same on YouTube.
It happens to me every Sunday. that I think, oh man, it sounds great, and then we hear the service and we're like, oh god, like that was terrible.
And get yourself a good pair of headphones.
That is key.
You have to get, and you got to get to know them. These are the Audio-Technica M50s. Just that's a starting point. Very respected. A lot of people use them. Get to know them. Don't use Beats headphones, because you know what Beats do? Beats are EQ'd a certain way. They're filtered to have a bigger lower end. But
if they're hip hop headphones, they're trying to give you a lot of that
so
punch.
they're EQ'd already. So you're not hearing. You want a flat sound. Just how we saw the EQ had a flat line. That's what they call it. You want a flat sound on your headphones, so that what you're hearing could better translate to what everybody else is going to hear.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really helped me in figuring out the whole volume on YouTube versus volume live is I really spent a lot of time getting to know where my master fader for the auxiliary that I was using to send out, like kind of where that lived. And typically I don't move that after I get a nice spot. So I know what meter I want to hit in order for it to sound good on YouTube. But that took a lot of trial and error and like listening to recordings, putting it up, putting it down.
Yeah, and I think like we were saying, like rehearsal, recording your rehearsal, having everybody say, okay, guys, the way you set up your pedal board on the guitar, the way your bass was dialed in during practice, don't change it. Remember that. You don't come on Sunday morning and have a whole different pedal board. You know, don't come on Sunday morning and have a whole different.
My guitar player, he walks in with a different guitar every Sunday.
Yeah, so like rehearsal, man, like I remember back in high school, they called it dress rehearsal. That's like the last rehearsal that you dress. They just up in the tuxedo for the orchestra and everything. I think that's the attitude you got to have, like Saturday or Thursday. Once you
whatever day of the week.
Yeah,
you
whatever
guys
day of the week you practice, man, stream it somewhere. Only you see it.
Yeah, and I think the next question by Caesar ties in very well to this one, and it's what's the setup to broadcast a live mix from an aux to an interface, and from the interface into what? And before we jump into answering that, I think that the answer to that could also be kind of the issues that cause bad sound in a live mix. Yeah. What Daniel was referring to, where it maybe sounds good in the house and it sounds good on the mixer, but once it makes it out of the mixer and into whatever you're using to go to YouTube, that's kind of where the disconnect happens, and you could be losing a lot of quality if you don't do that part right. So you want to talk about
we talked about. We'll touch on it because that's very important. Make sure you're not plugging into the sound card, and what I mean by the sound card is where the I had it somewhere here. Where this cable, maybe you guys see this cable, switch to Danny's cam, maybe we can. This cable, where this cable plugs in on your regular computer, that cannot be where you're sending your sound in. That's going to be very low quality. That's meant for a microphone of a webcam. A webcam, if you look at the EQ, the webcam is like preamp in there. It's probably accepting like very small. It's for voice. It's probably already cued for voice. It's probably going to ignore a lot of the low end, a lot of things like that. It's not going to be very good. So what you want an interface. If your computer is the one doing the video processing, you want an interface. You want the interface, like we talked about. You could get a Behringer interface. That's maybe like your starting point for $100. You could get a PreSonus, maybe a little bit better. That's what these mixers. Their interfaces for like $100 is equal to 2 channels of this mixer, same quality.
Could we back up? So Caesar is asking. So before we even get to the interface on the mixer, we recommend. I think we all do it that way. We go out of an aux, right?
Yeah.
But one of the very, very important things, and we actually made the mistake today as we started streaming, and Leo was EQing, and you guys were probably like, "What is he talking about? You can't hear the difference. They all sound the same."
Yeah, and when we're doing the
so there was a setting on the mixers on I think all modern digital mixers on how the auxiliary channels work, and it's very important that you set the auxiliary channels to receive PreSonus calls it fat channel, but
the EQ,
the compressor, and the gate, that it grabs all of that information, sends it to the auxiliary, so that then you could hear all of those changes in the live stream. Because if you leave it on pre-1, which PreSonus uses pre-1, pre-2, and post, right?
So I'll define it this way, and then we'll let Jonathan jump back in. Imagine the sound going out, all right? So we're going out. So when the sound is coming out, it's hitting different things. And you got to tell it, before it comes out to the computer, hit the EQ channel. the EQ filter, hit the compressor, hit the gate, and it'll be called something different in every mixer. But I know on the Behringers, at least in the older ones, I remember seeing that there were some like radio buttons you had to pick of what you wanted turned on as it was heading towards your auxiliary. On this one, on this particular mixer, they call it pre-1, pre-2, in post, right? So you want the sound to be affected by the filters, the EQ filter, the compressor, the gate, as it's heading out of your mixer. Because otherwise, you're just sending volume.
Yeah, and you're doing all of the mixing, and it sounds really good, even in your headphones that Jeff plugged into the mixer. But out to the live, you're just sending a bunch of raw sound,
Just raw
with volume controls, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So after we do that, and after we get that, and we're sending processed sound out of the mixer.
We go into something like, you could go into something like this. Now every mixer is going to have it different, and also it depends on how you're capturing. If I'm sending the video out of a computer, like with OBS, with vMix, with any, you're going to need something like this. All right. Now if you're sending it to, like in our case, we send it to a Blackmagic Mini. We don't need this. The Blackmagic Mini will accept just straight an audio cable from the mixer. All right. So depending on your situation, it'll be slightly different. But if your computer is the one sending the video out, invest in something like this. It's gonna help your sound a lot better and more control.
Absolutely.
Cables. Make sure you got good cables, guys. Anybody else? Maybe some of the challenges that you face and we could all learn. Because I think it's important to share. Like what has been some of the things that you're walking through, and I think.
Yeah, Daniel, I just read your comment. I think sometimes when we don't have a chance to practice, we kind of do the same thing. But so I would recommend going back and listening to the mix.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so he was talking about how they practice Sunday mornings, and then they just jump right into church.
Oh,
so they don't have that time.
Yeah,
so
you have to do something. I mean, I think nowadays it's very important, man.
Yeah.
Because if you do a bad job, man, imagine somebody might not come to your church. I mean, that's the reality. It sounds bad saying it, but that's the reality, right?
And can I give it some really practical advice? Like what I do is I'll listen to the mix. Honestly, we go through the service. We practice Saturday at our church. Saturday practice, we broadcast, and I'm listening. I kill this house sound. I don't even turn on the speakers.
In our case, we could do that.
We can do that in our case because we have in-ear monitors, right?
And we're not meeting on Sundays.
Correct. We're not meeting on Sundays. So then, like, I mix with my headphones. I even during service, I'm paying attention. And then when we leave church on Sunday, I immediately go to YouTube and play it off of YouTube and my car. And then I'm listening, and as I'm listening, I'm hearing the mistakes that my headphones or in the moment I missed, and I start jotting them down. I'm like, okay, the voice, I thought I had it dialed in here, but I'm noticing like most things in my church, and I'm not trashing them. It's just we all have different voices. We all have different voices.
Some of them are nice, some of them aren't.
No, well, it's not even that. Like for example, for me. Like in the lower range, it's very, it can sound very like mumbly, my voice, right? But my brother, his voice is very nasally, and when he's singing, that's around the 2,000 or 1,500 megahertz range. Man, that when he sings, like when he does like it just goes right through the roof. It pierces. The volume just shoots right. So to fix that, it takes a lot of work to fix it. And we even got him a new microphone just to help him out and stuff like that. But I would hear it and I think I got it right. And then I would hear it in off of YouTube after the service. And I'd be like, oh no, I don't. And as you develop this muscle of mixing, you start realizing, this is about the 300 range. I need to fix this, or I need to lower it in the 500 range or in the 1,000 range. And then it gets a little. Yeah, and you develop that muscle, right?
Yeah, and I think most of the offending frequencies are in the mid range. That's what
absolutely
kind of you never like the sound in your ear that sounds bad. Imagine somebody yelling through a megaphone, like a megaphone. That's all mid range.
That's all mid range.
It pierces. It goes far, but it doesn't sound good. So you'll realize that a lot of the offending stuff.
Yeah,
and I agree with Leo. And I do that all the time too. Like right after church, that's the first thing I do. Get in my car, listen to the mix. I get home. Well, usually I end up going to Mo's house, and we listen to it on Mo's TV speakers. And then I go to my house and I listen to it on my TV speakers just to hear how it sounds in different places.
We sit in the couch and we listen to our services and we say, "Ahora Moisés quería aprender," and then we play the church service and we start like going through. Hey, your kick drum was too loud. Like these headphones are flat. You know, they're flat. They're not like the Beats headphones, and so a lot of times like we had to calibrate like in our heads in us like, okay, we think we can't hear the kick, but if someone who's listening to the service online with a subwoofer, the kick is just like slamming. It's like boom, boom. But we think, oh, it sounds good. But that's one of the reasons why even at practice, like sometimes we'll broadcast and I'll run to my car or somebody's car and I'll listen because most cars have a decent sound system in them with subs. And we'll hear it and we're like, oh man, that kick is really loud. And I had to learn how to calibrate where I hear the kick on my headphones so that it can kind of sound balanced out.
Yeah. Another thing is, if you guys are passionate and you guys want to grow in this, man, you have to also reference something. So reference like somebody, like if you do a lot of certain group of songs, listen to their stuff on flat headphones and start learning, like retraining, because like we're trained to just look for low end, right? That's why everybody wants to look bass on but that doesn't translate, you know. That's hip hop.
Without bass, you can't move, bro.
but yeah, man. Like if you listen to a lot of Bethel, we'll listen to see how they do it, and as you mix, you know, maybe some reference. If you listen to a lot of CCM, if you listen to maybe Mia San Marcos, listen to them, listen to their drums, like.
And the thing is, like one of the biggest lessons that I learned on this, when I got these headphones, one of the reasons we like these is not only are they like really like industry standard headphones for sound mixing, but they're Bluetooth enabled. So honestly, I started watching and listening concerts that I liked, that I thought sounded great through here. And I started these headphones have become my filter of what sounds good. And that has helped me a lot because I mean, I'll listen to everything through here and YouTube. I even watch like Netflix, what I watch on Netflix or whatever. I'll listen through it through these headphones.
Pureflix.
Huh?
Nothing.
Pureflix?
Yeah. Caesar's got another good question.
All right, go ahead.
Have you ever sent raw broadcast into a DAW, mixed there, and then sent it out for an actual broadcast?
We haven't at my church, but I know that's Jonathan. That's what he does.
And I think that's if you've exhausted the mixture, that's the way to go. That's if you want to see the pros, that's the way. Then I think Jonathan could speak to it.
Yeah, so that's strictly how we do it.
And let me stop you right there. Can you explain what a DAW is?
Yeah, so a DAW is a digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
Did I make that up? Is it
No,
right?
that's it. I think that's
So it's a digital audio workstation. So it's like Pro Tools, Logic, GarageBand. There's a bunch of different ones. So it's just a software where you get to bring in audio, and then you could mix, kind of do what you're doing on the mixer, but you do it on software on the computer. So they call it mixing in the box. But yeah, that's strictly how we do it at our church. We have two totally different universes. We have a mixer for what happens in the house, and then we have a separate mixer for what happens in our live stream. But that mixer is just used as a big interface to send audio into. We use Logic. We process all the sound through Logic. The really, really cool thing about doing that, and the reason why a lot of the big professional churches or broadcasters use that is because the resources that you have are almost unlimited. They're limited.
They're limited by your computer.
Yeah,
That's it.
by your computer and your budget, I guess, right? So there's like a bunch of plugins and a bunch of things that you could do to really, really, really get your sound sounding the way you want to. But like we said right now, it can get very expensive. And you do want to make sure you have a decent computer to handle all of that, or at least outboard gear to be able to handle the processing. Or else you run into the risk of having a lot of latency, and then the voices won't sync up, or the computer will just crash mid broadcast.
Yeah, and a good thing to remember, or maybe one way to contrast it is when they built them, like if you have the Wing, if you have the X32, if you have the Presonus, when they built them, the engineers gave it all the resources for the capability of this mixer. So the mixer should never crash on you. It's a computer, but it's completely dialed in to handle everything you could throw at it. When you separate it with a DAW, now you better do your research, because if you send more than what the computer can handle, the software will let you keep doing it. Just at one point it's going to stop working, and then your audio is not going to work anymore, and you're going to be live, right? So I agree that the reason I think why it's so attractive and it's the more professional or more polished way to do it is because you have the tools that engineers use to produce records for production, for concerts, for when they make a song and it wins a Grammy, they're using that software. So you're using all that software that's available to them. Of course, your resources are only as much money as you want to put into it, right? But you have those tools available, and that's why it's so attractive and it's so good. I think ideally that's the way we would like everybody to go to. You just got to be very aware of what you're doing. Because it could end badly.
Yeah, it takes a lot of homework. I say do your homework really, really well before you start investing, because then you end up finding you invested in the wrong thing and have to start reinvesting. One of the big benefits that I really, really love, the reason I love doing the DAW, other than the fact that, I get to use some really, really cool plugins that some of these big artists use, is that I could just close my computer, take it home, and I could keep mixing when I get home. Like, I'm listening to the YouTube, and I'm like, oh, I didn't like that. I could just go back, hit play again, because I recorded the whole thing, and it's literally the exact same thing that was happening. So that's been really, really helpful for me in dialing in my mix.
Yeah. So I do agree. If you've exhausted the mixer, if you think you're hitting a wall because, man, you just can't take anything else out of the mixer, I think that's the way to go. If you're starting off, I would say start learning the tools here, because then when you get to the mixing in a box, I think you'll have a better understanding and you'll be able to just pull that much more out of it.
Yeah, because I do think that if you can't get a compressor to sound good on the mixer, you're not going to get it to sound good on the DAW. So, that's not going to fix, the DAW isn't just going to magically going to fix all your problems. Like, you still have to know the concepts, and you still have to, understand how the EQ works, and, high-pass filters, low-pass filters, gates, and all of that. The DAW just gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you use some of those features.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else?
One more. Would you be able to do a step-by-step on that specific process? Are you talking about that Caesar? Are you talking about the DAW?
Yeah, you would. If you're talking about DAW, you would need like an interface that. So you're sending audio here, and Jonathan, jump in. You're sending audio here is easy. Is the cable from the microphone goes here. Now to send it out to a separate place, I think might be multiple options.
Yeah, so there's two options. We did both, and we ended up going with the second option. But the first option is, so your board, I think you have a Personas, if I'm not mistaken, RM32. But so your board, you could technically hook up your board to the computer and still use all of the channels that you're using in your live stream. You could route them to your DAW. The problem with that is that you don't have separate gain control. There's a lot of things that you can't do, and you're limited by what's happening in your front house, right? So the way we ended up doing it to solve some of those issues is we go from, say, our microphone into a snake. Into an analog snake that splits two ways. So one will go to our front of house mixer, and the other will go to our broadcast mixer.
And there lies another challenge. You need an interface big enough to handle all the channels coming in. You can find a mixer with 32 channels easy. It's a challenge to find an affordable 32 channel interface, whatever platform you decide to go. So
and then on the way out, you still need another good interface. Ideally, to be able to send that mix out to whatever you're using, OBS, your Blackmagic, whatever camera system you're using.
Absolutely.
But we agree that's you get the most flexibility with that system. Of course, it's probably one of the more expensive systems to try to implement. And since it's not like a package deal, there's so many variables. So you really got to do your research. Make sure this hardware is going to work. Make sure this computer is going to be able to handle it. Make sure your plugins are going to do what you want them to do.
Yeah. It definitely takes a lot more work to do the DAW than to do from the mixer.
But I think the results are great.
Yeah, Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, is there something else? Guys, it's past 10 o'clock, so we don't want to keep you guys any longer. But number one, thank you guys very much for trusting us to show you guys some of the sound basics, that we've picked up along the way. And again, we're going to be releasing a coaching program soon. And if you guys are interested, please let us know. And we would love to walk one-on-one with you guys and work on your mix, not our mix, but work on your mix and work on your mix together and make it sound as best as possible as we can get it. Okay. Well, thank you guys. I hope you guys have a good night. Please let us know that if you guys have any more questions later on offline, we can talk about it. We can work things out like that. Going to the DAW, maybe that's a good thing to do. One day we can do a workshop just on that. But anyway, thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful weekend. And I hope your Sunday mix sounds good. You best believe I'm going to be sitting on that couch watching it.
We'll be watching.
a ver qué se les pegó. No, but thank you guys. God bless you guys. Have a good evening. And thank you so much for being here today. All right. Bye-bye.